So that was after my stroke, and I go to bed early now.
I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah. So there you go.
About what, the
Your
stroke?
stroke. Yeah. How did that happen? And what was that like?
Yeah, so, I mean, it was really one of the weirdest and greatest things that ever happened to me, because it definitely happened in like the height of when I thought I was like hot stuff, you know, like I was 31. I was 31 when it happened. And and I was still, I think, traveling every weekend, doing a lot of stuff, you know. And whether you have that tension we were talking about earlier or not, like, you know, there's still a part of you, you're like, I'm spreading the gospel, I'm doing this thing, you know, like, and it was such a kick in the pants to me, in the sense that, like, you know, everything, you know, all of us, like, I think if we had to say, like, oh yeah, you know, I know the Lord doesn't love me because of Pints with Aquinas, or the Lord doesn't love me because I could sing like an angel, or I could dance, or whatever, because I'm good looking. You know, there's still a part of us that's like, but, you know, I'm contributing something to the kingdom. I don't
understand what you mean.
Okay. So,
I know the Lord doesn't love me because of...
Well, like, I mean, do you, if someone said to you, like, Matt, do you think the reason Jesus loves you is because you do Pints with Aquinas?
Because of that.
Right,
I see what you mean.
Right.
Yeah. And I'd give the standard
You'd be
answer.
Like, no. It's just it's something that's cool or whatever. But there's a part of you inside that you're like, this is something like, I'm not saying it's the reason that God loves me, but you're like, my motivation behind this is like, I want the Lord to be glorified. I want the Lord to know, like, this is what I want my life to count for, and all that kind of stuff. But like, for me, like, at 31, I was driving home from a conference, and I took my I picked up my family and went to get something to eat. And in the middle of driving, like, I came to a stop sign, and it was like, just like that, like, I lost my vision, and then I had this bad headache. I had to sit down on the middle of the road.
What does that mean? Lost your vision? Is it like
I couldn't see? It was just like, I was like telling my wife, I was like, man, I'm like really dizzy. She's like, well, let's switch. And so I got out of the car, and somewhere between switching from the driver to the passenger seat,
thank God you went on a highway.
Everything went black. I know, dude. And I sat down in the middle of the road, and I was like, I can't see anything, you know. And I don't remember much about that day, but I eventually started throwing up just because, you know, I was having a stroke. And but like, I lost my vision, and then I couldn't talk right. And then my whole left side of my body for a few weeks was paralyzed. And, you know, like, at that, they don't know, like, well, you're going to get that back or whatever. And, and, you know, there's still like deficits, like in my body and my life and stuff like that. But the amazing / bizarre / horrible / amazing, you know, amazing in a good way, that happened was that, like, I came to know the Lord in such a different way, where it's just like, well, I'm not relying on, I remember being at a holy hour after that later in that year. And I stopped doing the Steubenville conferences. I stopped traveling. I just stopped all that. I was just like, you know, in a depression way, like, which I started struggling with depression in a real serious way after that, and still do, you know, like, here and there. But, you know, started like kind of thinking of like, it like, well, nothing matters, you know, like, oh, well, I got so many letters and people donated and all this stuff in the hospital. I would just throw it away. You know, I got to tell my wife, I was like, no, these people don't care. Nothing matters. You know, like, I just say, you know, food would come in the hospital. And then again, I was like out of my mind, you know, but I would take the tray, throw it against the wall. I was just, you know, part of it was just, there's a craziness, but part of it was just kind of felt like nothing really matters. And then, you know, sitting in this holy hour, like, with the Lord, and saying, like, well, you know, if say 40% of my brain died, or 20%, whatever it was that died, you know, like, well, at what point does a certain percentage die enough that I'm not me anymore? Or like, if my personality changes enough, like, when am I not me, and why do you love, you know, just the question to ask to the Lord, like, why do you love me? You know, it's really like a bear, all put it on the table, like, why do you love me? You know, because all of us could be like, well, the Lord loves us because we belong to him and stuff like that. But, you know, all of us are like, but I'm sure it pleases his heart that I could tell a good story, or that I could speak, or that I could sing, or I do whatever it is, and all those things like were taken away from me, like my movement, my speech, my confidence. I felt very like unconfident. I felt depressed for a long time. And I felt like I was always like the life of the party guy that would just be silly, and all those things were gone. And then you come before like the Lord and you're like, why do you love me? Like I can't offer you anything. Like I can't even, like, I'm not even good at being me anymore, and there was like like just this profound experience, like for me, of the Lord saying like, I just love you because you're mine, and you start to think of your own kids. Like if I had a kid that was, talking to me like a few years before that was saying like, oh, they didn't feel as talented at this or that as the other kids. And, you as a father, you start to think like, man, I don't care if you're good at basketball, if you're good at the violin, or you're this or that. You're like, I just love you because you're my son, like, and there was a sense of that, like a very personal thing that happened with me, where I started really realizing like, man, the Lord, and it wasn't just like something I accepted. I had a really hard time accepting that the Lord loves me outside of who I am, what I could do, what I could offer. Because then you start asking anyone, well, why does Matt want to hang out with me? Because I'm fun, because I can make him laugh, because I'm silly. What if I'm not like that anymore? What if I'm depressed now? It's like all these existential questions, and they started to really burn a hole through me, like to the fact that, like, I mean, to the point that I just felt like I was just ashes, and you like bring this to the Lord and this way, and then I felt like the Lord kind of built that back up in my life, who I am, built up our relationship, not based on being on a stage or on a microphone or being positive or whatever. And it was a significant encounter in my life. And it's definitely, there's been hard things about it, but it was definitely
how did your view of Kate's love, what was that like, her loving you through this the best way she could?
Well, it was funny because I remember I'd have to go down for different surgeries or like cardiograms, different angiograms, different things like tests when I was in the hospital for these couple months. And like again, my brain wasn't working right, but I would always tell the doctor, like, I got to get back. Like my wife's going to leave me. Like I just kept thinking like, dude, I have nothing to offer her. And I kept thinking like, just in my injured brain, like she's going to leave me for someone who has something to offer. And then I was like trying, whenever a friend would come and visit, my friend Brandon or my brother Ben or my buddy Tim, like I'd be like, hey, you got to marry Kate. I'd always tell them, and they're like, no, you guys are married, like, and I would, but I would try, I was like trying to say like I have nothing to like offer her, it's like her taking care of like a handicapped kid. Like I just like, and I can't imagine.
And at this point, you don't know how much you're going to recover, right?
Right. And she would always talk about that. Like she would ask people not to laugh because I would always do crazy stuff, throw my food, tip stuff over, say mean stuff to the nurse, just stuff.
Do you remember this?
No, well, I remember like it was a dream. She said I would always say to her, like, she'd be like, Bob, you can't throw your food on the wall. I'd say like, it's just a dream. And she would say like, it's not a dream. And I would say, she said I would do like that in my bed, in my bed, So there's like that dream-esque part of it that I remember, like there I felt like there were no consequences and like everything was foggy. But a lot of it I don't remember. But I do remember, like I probably had a solid 2 years, 18 months to 2 years of just a dark depression after that, and she was so good to me during that. I can't, as much as like you're worried about like, oh, I'm not going to walk again or I'm going to be this again. I can't imagine yet knowing like my spouse might never be able to talk to me like an adult again, or even after my speech improved or some of my like mental capacity improved. I felt like I'd want to like sit in the dark all the time or like, just stuff like that. And I can't imagine like, what that was like for a spouse, like just, we were talking about this once, me and you, but just the idea of, suffering with someone through sickness and stuff. It's a tough thing. So, I really like, she was a champ going through that, but it was something like I would never, I would never change. Like there's so many things in my life that I like look at before my stroke and after my stroke. And, for most people, like it's insignificant, but like for me, there were just so many things spiritually, and even in my relationship with my wife, that like changed forever after that, just because you're really like stripped of everything. And, but it also gave me like a soft spot in my heart for so many other people who deal with stuff. You realize like, that was hard for me, but like people who deal with depression in a much more severe way or have a physical handicap that's much more severe than what I have, like all of a sudden, like it definitely softened my heart, like broke my heart in a way that like it's changed, who I am, like pastorally. And, even with at that time, Vagabond Missions was young, but it definitely gave me a greater capacity for the broken and understanding the broken and my heart breaking for the broken. It's like I think like it's like if you were, it's like when you see two veterans of war, talk to each other, like there's a certain understanding there that they know, even if it's not the same exact war, they know what it's like to have been through war. There's that, I think that part of my heart changed, like where you just, your heart really softens and breaks for, others who have experienced brokenness in a tough way. And with the inner city ministry, it definitely was a huge asset, that the Lord used,
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. I often think that my wife's love is sort of like a prophet in the sense that it points to God's love for me, because there's definitely times in my marriage that still happen where I'm like, why would you love me? I don't understand, because like when you first get engaged, or when you first get married, you can't, there's a natural front that's up, just like you have a front with everybody. You want to put your best self forward, but that you can't keep it up. It doesn't work. Eventually it drops. And my wife has seen that in me, and it scared me. It's stuff I wish I didn't have to deal with, parts of my personality that I'm ashamed of or embarrassed about that naturally come forth. At times I'm an absolute jerk to her and things like that. And I'm shocked that she actually continues to love me in it, and it's a reminder of the Lord's love. But
yeah, and there's a freedom there that, I mean, you're right. It is prophetic in that it mirrors the Lord's love. But there's a freedom in being like, wow, I have nothing to offer, and you love me still, or like you see me at my worst. Like you see me in my poverty, and you love me.
Yeah, that's it.
And there's just something there that's like, man, I can't think of something that's more. I think when the young man, like, you think like nothing could be more bonding than like sexual intimacy, but like really nothing could be more bonding than like seeing each other at your worst and just, like going through that, loving each other through war.
Yeah.
Because that's really like a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Do people, because I only met you after your stroke. Do people say that you're different, very different before and after?
Yeah, my friends that knew me well before, not that I'm not still weird or silly, but like I think my friends that knew me, I grew up with or went to college with, I was I feel like I was the bar closer, I'd want to be there till the end. I had major FOMO. I would want to be the life of the party. And now I think there's a part of me that's, I've definitely, and everyone, this happens in everyone's life in different ways anyway, but like I was a super extrovert, to like my life has kind of come around. Not that I'm not an extrovert at all anymore, but I like going to bed early and I like waking up early, and I like Irish goodbyes where I sneak out of a party, and I like to not have to be the funny guy in a party, and also I know, like those who know me closely and if, like walked with me, like when I've like, through depression, I think that's, something that, and like, cause it's weird, like for me, like that wasn't something I dealt with as a young person, but started dealing with in my 30s. That was like was just a weird thing. And so I think, you know, those that knew me before and have walked through that, yeah, I mean, I think they've been very patient and very encouraging and stuff like that. And then there's some like physical things that like I used to run a lot, you know, I used to like to run marathons and, but I can't run at all anymore. I couldn't run across the room. You know,
right?
my like legs, my spine, there's just some issues there that I just, you know, that are different. But, you know, you start to like, you know, you're like, well, this is who I am. And that's that, you know, but I definitely feel like, you know, gravity, like in the soul is a good thing. You know, I mean, I feel like there's just, like I had a spiritual director once that was just like, you know, I mean, this was in a specific situation. I was trying to decide how do I argue with this one person. And he was like, you'll never regret humility, you know? And, you know, what he was saying, like, as he went on to explain was like the graces of humility, even humiliation, like aren't going to be like, inefficacious. Like, you know, like they'll always be something, you know, like the Lord will use it even if we're kicking and screaming a little bit, you know, like, so don't be afraid of the humility. And I mean, that's been true for me, you know, in my life, and people deal with much worse, but yeah. So I think it's been, yeah, even as friendships, you know, you learn to love someone as their life changes, even in a weird way, you know?
If you like that clip, be sure to like and subscribe. Cheers.